Is there any objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. What purpose does Representative Irwin rise?
To make a motion
State your motion.
that House Bill 830 be recommitted to public safety and homeland security.
Representative Irwin has moved that House Bill 830 be recommitted to the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 830 by Representative Irwin and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 16 of Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding sheriffs, so as to repeal provisions limiting sheriffs to one additional salary for serving as the sheriff of multiple courts.
On the gentleman's motion that House Bill 830 be recommitted to the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, is there any objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Going back to the rules calendar. Going to the rules calendar, the clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1383.
House Bill 1383 by Representative Wilski of the 79th and others, be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 19 and Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Fair Employment Practices Act of 1978, so as to provide for hearing before an administrative law judge. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Walensky to present the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. Hello, House. Today I bring to you House Bill 1383. This was brought to us by the Georgia Commission on Equal Opportunity. It got a very thorough vetting in judiciary. It's an amazing committee. I'm honored to serve on it. This is an update to the code section, specifically to the Fair Employment Practices Act. And really what this do is a cleanup bill. It clarifies a lot of ambiguity and also repetition both in this code section and other code sections, and also makes the administration of this process much cleaner and much better. And I ask for your favorable consideration and yield for any questions. I would love questions.
You would love questions. Well, you didn't have any.
I'll take any questions, Speaker.
You still have none.
Thank you, Speaker. Thanks. I asked for your favorable consideration. I yield the well.
See? Okay. Gentleman has yielded the well. Be careful what you love. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Wynn rise? She waves. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 1383, the ayes are 156, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1385.
House Bill 1385 by Representative Anderson of the 10th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 36 and Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to annexation of territory, so as to revise annexation reporting requirements to require the provisions of reports to the Legislative and Congressional Reapportionment Office of the General Assembly. This bill having referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Anderson to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, last session we approved House Resolution 222, which created a study committee looking at annexation and cityhood issues. We focused primarily on the dispute resolution process of annexations. In our findings, after we held meetings around the state and in the Capitol here, there were several suggestions. This bill addresses just a couple of those suggestions. Currently under state law, when a city or municipality annexes some land, they're required to provide maps and data to the Department of Community Affairs. That's all. That's the only requirement. What this bill does is it requires municipalities to provide maps and description to the Department of Community Affairs and also to the Legislative and Congressional Reapportionment Office of the General Assembly. It also requires those maps to be provided in shapefile digital format and authorizes regional commissions to assist municipalities if they're unable to generate those formats. That's the basics of the bill, and Mr. Speaker, if there's no questions, I will ask for your favorable consideration and yield the will.
Do you yield for questions?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin for a question.
I just would ask the gentleman, would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I just asked the gentleman, are you familiar with the version of Linux that those shape files must be compatible with?
I am not, sir.
Just checking.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
No, you have no further questions. Let me. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Chairman Martin rise?
No. He rises to say he pressed the wrong button. I apologize.
Okay.
I was trying to.
Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of House Bill 1385, the ayes are 158, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed.
Clerk will read the caption to H.R. 920. H.R. 920.
H.R. 920 by Representative Ralston the 7th and others, a resolution condemning the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation. This resolution having been assigned to the Committee on Rules, that committee recommends that this resolution be adopted.
The chair recognizes Speaker David Ralston to present the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. I come before you today to present House Resolution 920 for a very simple and singular purpose: to condemn the invasion of the Ukraine by the Russian Federation and to put Georgia on record as standing up for those who are standing for freedom. Now, I'm not naive. I realize that our action today will not alter the course of events before us, and probably won't even be read in Washington. But there are some occasions presented to us by fate where it is important to say what should be obvious, and that is to stand with good against evil. I cannot begin to fathom what Vladimir Putin is thinking of or why he would commit this kind of atrocity. But today we will call him out for the tyrant that he is and condemn his actions and those who willingly follow him. He is a bloodthirsty tyrant who deserves condemnation and not words of praise or cheers. You'll note that I emphasize the word willingly follow him. Many of Russia's own citizens are being brave and standing up to their government's invasion of Ukraine. Sadly, many are being forcibly detained by their own government as a result. We acknowledge that this invasion is not the fault of all the Russian people. This invasion is the fault of a despotic, deranged, and despicable circle of Russian leaders who are bringing shame on their own flag and their country. We cannot yet know how many injuries and fatalities have been caused by Russia's unprovoked aggression. Just today, for example, it has been reported recently in the news that the Russians have attacked a maternity and children's hospital. I'm going to say that again, in case you thought you misheard me. The Russians have attacked a maternity and children's hospital. I haven't seen them, but I'm told the images from that scene from news outlets are too horrific to contemplate, much less display here in this House. We do know that this invasion has caused an estimated 2 million Ukrainians to flee their homes for fear of becoming one of those casualties. These are civilians, innocent men, women, and children who have done absolutely nothing to warrant this war that has devastated their communities and their country and torn their families apart. If you've tried watching the nightly news lately, and if you react as I do, your stomach has been turned upside down by the haunting images of children crying, walking along with their families if they are lucky to escape Putin's war. I want to add here my admiration for the Ukrainian people for standing up and defending their nation. Even with the odds firmly stacked against them, they have shown the kind of resolve that you hope somewhere deep down lies within each of us. Their bravery and resolve stands as a light of hope in this world. In that spirit, I would ask that we continue to do all we can to support them in their cause. That's why this resolution calls on both the President and the Congress to continue to take prudent actions to bring about a swift, peaceful end to this conflict. I hope you'll note that this resolution is signed by the leadership of both political parties in here, because this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. On this point, politics stops at the water's edge, and we unite as Americans. Our nation has stood up against tyrants before, and we do so here again today, because today we are all Ukrainians. I would ask you to join with me in praying for the people of the Ukraine, those in harm's way, and praying that this bizarre, barbaric chapter of history ends quickly and as peacefully as possible. I would ask your favorable consideration of House Resolution 920, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the adoption of the resolution. The yeas were 166, the nays were 0. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1295.
House Bill 1295 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 6 of Article 6, Chapter 2, entitled 20, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to employment under the Quality Basic Education Act, so as to remove the needs development rating from the group of performance evaluation ratings, which may adversely impact an educator's ability. This bill having referred to the Committee on Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the House, I bring before you House Bill 1295, LC 490917S. In Georgia, about 50% of the teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. So the intent of this bill, what we're trying to do is change the evaluation of the, where they can get the proper evaluation, where we can get the teachers the help they need so they can become hopefully highly effective teachers and not be penalized by the Professional Standards Commission and lose their certificate. And that's all we're trying to do with this bill. And I appreciate your favorable support.
There is a question.
I yield for one.
The chair recognizes Representative Clark for a question to your left.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does the gentleman yield?
To the lady, yes.
Yes, so just to clarify, what specifically are we removing from the standards?
We're not moving, as far as the Professional Standards Commission, the needs improvement evaluation. A lot of times a school system is hesitant to give a teacher a needs improvement because if they get 2 within 5 years, they lose their accreditation. So the school system still can give them a needs improvement. It just removes that from the Professional Standards Commission where they won't lose their accreditation. And hopefully we get them if they get a needs improvement, we can get them a professional development plan in place, and you bring in a mentor, help teach them to, like I say, hopefully get them to a highly effective teacher. That's the goal of this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. I yield the well. Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bill. The yeas were 159, the nays were 4. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1280. House Bill 1280.
House Bill 1280 by the representative from the 99th, to be entitled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to municipal taxation so as to revise provisions concerning the duties of county tax commissioners with respect to the assessment and collection of municipal taxes and fees. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The chair recognizes Representative Lim to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I present before you today House Bill 1280 for your favorable consideration. Some of you who know me know how much I love two things: administration of local government and tax law and policy, both things that this bill happens to comprise. Specifically, this bill regards how county tax commissioners and counties contract with municipalities to collect municipal taxes, fees, and special assessments. This is important because, especially as we seek to create more municipalities, there won't necessarily be efficiencies of scale or even a desire for all of them to collect their own taxes and prepare their own tax digests. Unfortunately, though, right now, we have under state law an inconsistent, kind of chimerical three-tiered system on how these contracts are negotiated, depending on the number of tax parcels in a county, whether it's over or under 50,000, or as of last year, because of the development that arose in my county, Gwinnett, whether the county happens to have 14 or more municipalities. I say inconsistent because depending on what category or tier you're in, either the county, the municipality, or even in some instances, the county tax commissioner can have less power in the decision making on what these contracts look like than what they perhaps should, and ultimately have what the county tax commissioners, can receive for fulfilling these municipal responsibilities. Furthermore, and if this is important, there is no actual cap under the law on what commissioners can receive for these responsibilities on top of their annual salary, which has led to some inefficiencies that ultimately harm the local taxpayer most of all, allowing in some cases for additional compensation far beyond the actual cost of these services, or if there were a fair market value for those services, the value of those services. So what this bill does is to address those issues by, above all, finally creating one uniform system that applies in all 159 counties, and that system dictates that the three relevant parties, the county tax commissioner, the county, and the municipality, all have a seat at the table and negotiate the contract together, ensuring equal bargaining power, again, regardless of where you are in our great state. Furthermore, in a nod to transparency, the contracts they negotiate will have to specify what is being paid for which services or purposes, including, again, the cost of the actual services provided. Finally, House Bill 1280 does set a cap on the compensation for the tax commissioners that is on top of their annual salary, and that cap is at 50% of the minimum annual salary tax commissioners are required to be paid already under state law. I particularly will close by wanting to thank Chairman Efstration, who I know was committed to revisiting this issue this year to ensure more uniformity, transparency, and fairness in contracting. And appropriately enough, given what HB 1280 sets out, we are also grateful to the Georgia Association of Tax Officials, or GATO, which represents the tax commissioners statewide, ACCG, and GMA for coming together, surveying their members since, I believe, last summer, and figuring out a structure that works for everyone, including, I stress again, ultimately the local taxpayers. All three of them, GATO, ACCG, GMA, support this bill, and with that, I ask for your favorable consideration. Madam Speaker, I yield for questions.
You do have questions. The chair recognizes Representative Bentley in front of you for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do yield to the
Thank you.
Strawberry Queen.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate it. Is it not true, Representative, that this bill passed out of committee with bipartisan support?
It did, and it has bipartisan sponsorship. It will help all 159 counties, yes.
And is it not further true that I will be supporting your bill on today?
I will assume that to be true, and thank you very much, Representative.
The chair recognizes Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Madam
For a
Speaker.
question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do yield.
Is it not true, Representative Lim, that this is your first bill, and I'm very proud of you for your hard work?
It is true, and thank you for the pride you have in me and have had in me for many years, even before this job. So thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative McLaurin for a question. To your right.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Does the representative yield?
Yes, to my law school classmate.
Representative, you mentioned that you have a very strong interest in both local government administration and tax law and policy. I was wondering if you've ever listed those interests on any sort of online dating profile, and if so, how that's worked out for you.
I will send Representative McLaurin my former OkCupid profile at a later time.
Who says magic can't happen on the House floor? Thank you, Representative.
There are more.
I do know that Chairman Efstration intends to speak to this bill, but being that this is my first, I will yield to any, especially substantive questions.
The chair recognizes Representative Washburn for a question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I do yield.
Is it not true that this bill is an excellent bill that will make much more efficient the municipality's ability to do tax assessment and collection of those taxes?
I certainly agree with that, and I'll point out at least two ways that happens. One, again, municipalities will be more likely to contract with county tax commissioners who do have those efficiencies of scale. And second of all, by setting that cap, we're ensuring that, again, ultimately the taxpayers aren't paying for services that are not actually being provided for them. So I would agree with you, yes.
Will you yield for another question?
I will yield for one more question.
Is it not true that I commend you for your hard work on this bill and for producing this excellent legislation and getting it through the legislative process?
Thank you, Representative Washburn.
The chair recognizes the majority leader for a question.
Yield.
I do yield.
Representative, isn't it true that you almost made it to the long-standing tradition of freshmen being seen and not heard their first 2 years here? So congratulations on standing your ground, presenting a good bill, and we look forward to supporting you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Leader.
There are
Okay,
no more questions.
I will yield for one more question.
No more questions.
Okay. On the record, I answered all the questions. I yield the well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman has yielded the well. The chair recognizes Chairman F. Stration to speak to the bill.
Well, how do you follow that? I want to thank the House for hearing me on this today. This legislation has been contemplated and discussed for over a decade. So compensation of county tax commissioners is something that's been well covered in the media, and legislative work to try to address that was taken on by former Judiciary Chairman from Sandy Springs, who worked very hard on that issue for many years. And what you have today before you really started in the final 2 days of the legislative session last year. You may recall legislation was amended to address an issue with Gwinnett County, and there were questions that I received here in the well about how can this be made to apply statewide. We need a statewide uniform system across the state. It's wrong that this is just applying in 1 or 2 counties. And what we did is immediately got to work on that legislation. Through the summer, we worked very hard to put together the bill that's now before you, is House Bill 1280. And as you heard from Representative Lim, this legislation has support of the Georgia Association of Tax Officials, ACCG, and GMA. And I think that that's really a huge accomplishment, to have one standard that will apply statewide, addressing this well-recognized issue, and that everybody is on board with it. And just 3 things you can maybe mention if asked about this in your community. Number 1, it will require a 3-way contract between counties, cities, and tax commissioners so that everybody has say in the process. Number 2, it's going to apply to the collection of both taxes and fees. That question was out there. What are we going to do about taxes and fees being treated differently? And third, as a sponsor said, there will be a cap on the amount of compensation. There's no current cap in place. So it's really quality legislation, in my view, that is a result of great bipartisan work. I'm proud to support House Bill 1280 and ask that you do the same. I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Clark rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that when we passed a bill that dealt with tax commissioner compensation and it only dealt with Gwinnett and Fulton, that I expressed concerns that it was only targeting 2 counties, and I am very happy that we have now addressed this statewide.
The chair is sure the lady knows of that of which she speaks. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 161, the nays were 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1043. 1043.
House Bill 1043 by Representative Jaspers, the 11th, being titled an act to amend Chapter 12 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to commissions and other agencies so as to provide for the creation of the Georgia Endowment for Teaching Professionals. This Bill having referred to the Committee on Higher Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Jaspers to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members, for hearing about another effort by the Rural Development Council to strengthen rural Georgia. This bill will create the Georgia Endowment for Teaching Professionals to create a public-private partnership for our technical schools. We found out through our visits across the state, there are positions in our schools that are going unfilled, are unable to even find a teacher to fill them. It's been very difficult. In other words, these teachers can find more higher pay in the private industry. So in an attempt to help, this bill creates a board of trustees and advisory committee that's charged with raising funds and then distributing them within TCSG due to need. You'll see lots of how the board works, and the most important thing that's in here is this board to get started has to raise $100,000, 50 from private, 50 from public, before they can do anything. And if they do not do that, the council will sunset. And that's, like we say many times here, this will give TCSG another tool in the toolbox to keep our Georgians well trained for the future. Madam Speaker, it's my bill, and I'll be glad to answer any questions or yield the well if there are not any.
There are no questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 157, the nays were 4. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 849. House Bill 849.
House Bill 849 by Representative Smith, the 41st, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1975 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to reporting of child abuse, so as to add human resources personnel and supervisory personnel in a workplace that employs minors as mandatory reporters for child abuse. This bill having referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The chair recognizes Representative Smith to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the House. Today I bring before you HB 849, and what this bill simply does is that it requires any business with 5 or more employees that hires minors in the workforce to designate their human resource personnel, which means anyone that is responsible for the hiring of employees, as a mandated reporter. A mandated reporter is a person who, because of his or her profession, is legally required to report, once again report, not investigate, any suspicion of child abuse or neglect to the relevant authorities. These laws are in place to prevent children from being abused and to end any possible abuse or neglect at the earliest possible stage. Now let's address the need for this bill. Child abuse is a critical issue in the United States, where nearly 5 children die every day due to abuse or neglect. Every 10 seconds, a new report of abuse is made. And most of the reports of suspected child abuse or neglect tend to come from the professionals who come into close or consistent contact with minors. Now, this bill specifically deals with the interaction and the conversations between adults and teenagers between the ages of 14 and 17, but the impact is intended to save the lives of many more. In the households where teenagers have younger siblings, the teenager could be the only one able to speak up for them. Also, this could be the first time teenagers are introduced to other adults outside the supervision of their parents that aren't their teacher, coach, or pastor. And with that being said, teens are also less likely to report harassment, therefore making the ability to recognize an inappropriate interaction with an adult at the job crucial. Now let's talk about who is being affected by this legislation. Once again, that's any business that has 5 or more employees that hires minors. And the reason for the number 5 is not arbitrary. The intent of this is to provide flexibility to the smallest of our businesses while also protecting the majority of our teens and the workforce. In the code section for mandatory reporters, only the individual is responsible for the reporting and not the business. And before I close, mandated reporter training is offered for free, and it is easy to register online. And as a former school teacher, I have seen the mandated reporting requirement work to end abuse in the lives of the students that I have personally taught, and I believe the same thing can be done in our workforce here in Georgia. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield for any questions, and if there aren't any, I will yield the well.
There are a couple questions. The chair recognizes Representative Gravely for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
Is it not true that you and I have had the great privilege and pleasure of coaching youth in our community, and where you and I have actually been to the same coaching events and enjoyed working with the young people in our community? And is it not further true that you and I both have been trained on mandatory reporting, and so this is a very important issue, not only in the workplace, but as community coaches in our community?
The gentleman knows of what he speaks.
I appreciate it's a good bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Ridley for a question.
Does my friend yield?
My good friend, yes.
Is this your first bill?
You know what? I passed one about 4 years ago.
Well, daggone. Well, this is a great bill. I am disappointed that I can't make no fun of it because you picked something serious to bring up here right now. But I appreciate you, Bill, appreciate your friendship, and appreciate your foresight on this.
Always, always. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative McLeod for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
So I think it's a very good bill, and I love the intent. I just want to ask a question about on casual contact. If, say, a child came into McDonald's and, you know, I see something and I'm an employee, I see something and I'm concerned, could that create some problems with how it gets handled? I'm just concerned about just the casualness of, and basically somebody saying they're judging it to be harmful to that child, not knowing what's going on exactly.
That's absolutely a great question, and it helps me, you know, clear up the intent of this bill. The intent of this bill is to focus on the workforce, but as a mandated reporter, you are required to report any abuse that you see. It's reporting, not investigating.
Okay, thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Saines for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Is it not true that the significance of mandated reporters has been shown through this pandemic as child abuse and neglect reports have gone down because contacts for children as they stay home has also gone down?
The gentleman knows of what he speaks.
Thank you for bringing this timely bill.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'll yield the well.
There are no more questions. The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 160, the nays were 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed.
Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 884.
House Bill 884 by Representative Belton of the 112th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions of professions and businesses so as to change certain provisions relating to expedited licenses, endorsements for military spouses. This bill having referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Belton to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the last time I'll bring to you a military-friendly bill. I thank this body for over the last 7 years we've passed over 57 military-friendly bills, and I do thank you for that. And I want to say a moment of thanks to the Speaker for House Resolution 920. Throughout my naval career and my father's career, and Al Williams and Colonel Josh Bonner and David Clark and Sherry Gilligan and Mike Glanton, Colonel Bill Hitchens, Scott Holcomb, Action Jackson, Sandra Scott, Eddie Lumsden, Mark Newton, Randy Nix, Colonel Prince, Philip Singleton, Ed Setzler, Brad Thomas, the husband of Gloria Frazier. What we were all trying to do in our military career was to avoid what's happening right now in the Ukraine. And it very saddens me what's going on there. House Bill 884 is a direct request by the Secretary of State to modify our code. I'd like to remind you that Georgia is the 5th largest military population in America, bringing in $28 billion a year. The Secretary of Defense is the largest single employer in Georgia, 120,000 military service members, and over a third of a million total jobs in Georgia. What this bill does is actually it perfects something that Representative Al Williams did a long time ago for spouse licensures. Whenever I go to these military bases, even today, the number one things that these base commanders talk to me about is spouse licensures. It's just not happening quick enough. So what this says is, once the spouse has put together all of his paperwork and he has the qualifications and the training and the expertise and the examinations, the board will move in 30 days. Now, why do I say 30 days? If you looked up there, very top in the yellow, the Secretary of Defense is requesting that we move on these in 30 days. Who is the Secretary of Defense? He's Lloyd Austin from Thomasville, Georgia, and he, again, is the largest employer in Georgia. So 28 states do this right now. If you get the map, please put the map up, if you would. 28 states do this. We're in yellow right now. I'd like to move it to the green again. And on this particular issue, this is where we are in Georgia on this particular issue. And I stand for questions.
You have no questions.
I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 884 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 884. The ayes are 164, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1279.
House Bill 1279 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 13 and Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to dangerous drugs, so as to authorize certain persons with chronic disease and certain persons over 65 years of age to carry prescription medications in a compartmentalized medication container. This bill having referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Gamble to present the bill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1279 makes a simple change in law that will help our senior citizens by allowing anyone over the age of 65 to carry up to a 21-day amount of prescription medication in a prescription container. Currently, that is not allowed under law, and if you pass this bill today, it will allow our senior citizens to carry their medications. And so I would ask for your favorable consideration. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Do you yield for questions?
I will yield for a question.
Chair recognizes Representative Jasmine Clark to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
So I, looking at the line 20 of the bill, it says persons with chronic disease or over 65. And so my question is law enforcement able to ask for medical diagnosis when they are speaking to someone?
Well, you know, that's a good question. And I would just tell you that if you support allowing individuals who are over the age of 65 to be able to carry their prescription drugs in a prescription container, then this is a bill that you're going to want to support today.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I'll yield for one more, but I know we're ready to get out of here, and it's been a long day.
Yes, I'm ready as well. So if law enforcement can't ask for medical diagnosis, does this essentially open it up to where any individual may use these compartmentalized containers to carry their controlled substances or dangerous drugs?
No, that is not the intent of the law, and you know, worked with the Georgia Pharmacy Association on this to make sure that provision was covered, and I think that we will be able to see that that doesn't happen if we pass this bill today. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I will ask for this body's favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Ridley rise?
Parliamentary Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the author left out that this bill was going to be called the Representative Don Hogan bill initially? Is it not true, sir?
We need to name a bill after him before he leaves.
Yes, sir, we do.
This might be as good as any. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1279. The ayes are 164, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1357.
House Bill 1357 by Representative Smith, the 18th, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 22-984 relating to the Professional Standards Commission's authority to create and implement standards and procedures for certifying educational personnel. This bill having referred to the Committee on Education. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Tyler Paul Smith to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of this august body. I bring to you today House Bill 1357. This bill is just a simple change. It simply requires the Professional Standards Commission to consider any teacher certification program outside of the state which meets the accreditation and certification requirements of the Professional Standards Commission. In our state, we've seen a shortage statewide and in a lot of our rural areas, especially in our specialty subjects like STEM. The statistics would show you that roughly a third leave the profession in their first 5 years. This bill complements what this General Assembly and the Governor have done in making Georgia a teacher-friendly state that provided a $5,000 teacher pay increase, and this helps us to make sure that we have teachers in the pipeline ready to go. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for a question.
You have no questions?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask this body's favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Wade rise?
Pursuant to Rule 133, may I be excused from the vote.
The gentleman has that right, and the journal will so reflect. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1357. The ayes are 161, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House Bill 1351 has been postponed from previous rules calendars. It is being called today. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1351.
House Bill 1351 by Representative Knight of the 130th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 7, Chapter 4, Title 49 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Medicaid assistance generally, so as to provide for pharmacy benefit management for the Medicaid program to be conducted by the Department of Community Health after a date certain. This bill having referred to the Special Committee on Quality Health Care. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Knight to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if anticipation makes everything sweeter or it just makes you a little more anxious. So, but at long last, HB 1351. Many of you know that this body has been working diligently and have led not only this state but this nation in some of the most landmark legislation in our fight to lower prescription drug drug cost. And this bill is about carving out the pharmacy benefits from the managed care Medicaid organizations in Georgia. So real quick, let's talk what is one of our Medicaid managed care organizations. We've got 3 of them. Peach State, owned by Centene, number 24 on the Fortune 500. Centene was also recently purchased WellCare. Their PBM benefit manager is CVS, number 4 on the Fortune 500. Our other Medicaid managed care program is Amerigroup, owned by Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, number 23 on the Fortune 500. They have their own affiliated benefit manager, IngenioRx, and they also contract with CVS. CareSource, while not a publicly traded company, but is one of the largest Medicaid managed care plans in the country, And their pharmacy benefit manager is Express Scripts, which is owned by Cigna, number 13 on the Fortune 500 company. We all know that we've been a long fight against these unscrupulous business practices from these companies. So what have we seen as far as the behavior? Spread pricing. It's where we charge the taxpayers more for the drugs than the pharmacies are actually reimbursed. I will remind this body, and thanks to Chairman England and others, that Georgia was one of the first of 3 states in the nation to uncover spread pricing. In fact, we're in a current lawsuit, Centene's in a current lawsuit in which they've set aside over $1 billion to settle with a lot of the southeastern states, including Georgia, which is still in that process of investigation. We've seen steering, in which patients are steered to the pharmacies that are affiliated or owned by the PBMs. They're steering some of the most chronically ill patients, cancer, HIV, other patients, autoimmune deficiencies, and they're steering them to their downstream assets, their pharmacies, their mail order pharmacies or specialty pharmacies. And more so, retroactive fees. Retroactive fees and when these PBMs go back into the pharmacies after the adjudication process, days, weeks, sometimes months, and say, we paid you too much, and we're going to take a little bit back. In fact, I'll give you an example shortly. And we've also seen that the PBMs and the managed care affiliate pharmacies are being reimbursed more than the independents. And again, we have led. So where's Medicaid managed care today? Spread pricing, we have prohibited in 2019 and 2020. 2020, we prohibited retroactive fees. Again, shoring up the steering legislation, anti-steering legislation. And we've also made sure in prior years under the MAC pricing laws that we tried to make sure our pharmacies did not have underwater reimbursements. But despite all of these efforts of this body, this legislature, this governor, the games persist. In testimony, we had community pharmacies, and a lot of these were from our most rural areas. And they came in and gave examples of what is happening under these managed Medicaid plans. We had one independent pharmacy that had 3,500 prescriptions negatively reimbursed in the past 6 months, loss of $21,000. We had another pharmacist that come in and had 3,700 prescriptions negatively reimbursed in the past 6 months, loss of $27,000. Sorry about that. Another alarm going off. We had another independent pharmacist had 1,068 prescriptions negatively reimbursed for the past 6 months, $3,100. Another one, 10,500 prescriptions negatively reimbursed in the last 6 months for a loss of $68,000. And again, we're sitting here trying to build access to health care. But yet, the very professionals that our Georgia Medicaid patients want to go to, they are actually being driven out. We see steering. We had examples of where some of our most chronically ill patients were rejected. Said you got to go to what? The specialty pharmacy for the PBM. We also began to see in AmeriGroup on their website their specialty pharmacy. They had 2. We've all heard of what's going on with the narrow networks in Georgia, and they're killing our hospitals, but especially our rural hospitals. IngenioRx, and guess what? One other pharmacy, 12 Stone Health Partners in Tennessee. Wasn't it amazing that our cancer patient that testified before the committee said she was told that she could either drive up to Tennessee and get the medicine or she had to get it from the specialty pharmacy. But listen to this. Again, her oncologist had it on the shelf, and that oncologist could have prescribed that medicine and reached around and got that medicine and given it to that cancer patient. But the games persist. They consist. And you know, spread pricing was bad enough, but the games that they will play continue. And so now we're finding in managed Medicaid, we're finding, listen to this, retroactive fees that we outlawed or made against the law in 2020. We had examples. You want to know what it looks like? So if you're a pharmacist and all of a sudden a week, 2 months later, you had a drug that they went back and grabbed $219 weeks after it was adjudicated at the point of sale. On top of that, you lost $15 at the point of sale. They took $225 out of his pocket, a loss for serving our Medicaid patients. We've got other examples that were given. Again, the bad practices continue. So if you remember in 2020, this body overwhelmingly passed our bill, one of the bills which we wanted to have exactly this, a carve-out. That bill also had language for a study. It passed the House, we got over to the Senate, and DCH called me and said, we're going to do the study, and I withdrew the bill. Well, now we have the results of the study. A carve-out under the best case scenario, and this is an actuarial study by DCH, the best case scenario was a savings to Georgia of $1.2 million. Worst case, $7 million loss. Best case, $14 million savings. So all of what we heard 2 years ago about this was going to cost the state 70, 80, 90, $120 million a year didn't turn out. Again, DCH's own actuarial study proved it. So here's where we are today with this bill. Based on this study, I'm going to ask you to go back and again continue through what we're doing. Let's carve out the pharmacy benefits out of managed Medicaid. Let's let our Medicaid patients go and choose the pharmacy of their choice. It's going to cost us less, but most of all, it is going to give us transparency. Transparency. We're going to know exactly what the cost is. Second of all, we're going to have better health care outcomes. And when patients get to choose and they get access to more pharmacists and more health care providers, health outcomes increase. So again, I want to ask for your favorable support. Let's continue to lead, not only in Georgia, but lead the nation of what we're doing to make sure that we are lowering the cost of prescription drug benefits and taking the middleman out of the picture. Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll yield for any questions.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Gilligan for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I will to my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for yielding. And so my question is, would you say that this is good government accountability and transparency and therefore reducing the cost to the consumer?
I do. And let me tell you, as it stands right now, Georgia contracts with these managed care organizations to provide the health care services, in this case, pharmacy benefits, okay, via, their pharmacy benefit managers. These PBMs add on an additional layer of bureaucracy while locking the Medicaid recipients, okay, into, locking them in. The patients then have no choice. There's an extra layer of bureaucracy. We're removing that, and when we remove that and we allow more access, more competition out there with healthcare providers, adding more into the process, that, my friend, is competition. That is transparency. And most of all, that's going to lead to better health care. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for bringing the bill.
Mr. Speaker, any other questions?
You have no further questions.
Thank you. And I appreciate this body and what y'all have done over the years as we take a true hard policy look at these issues that affect every Georgian in this state. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Chairman Parrish rise?
Mr. Speaker, under Rule 133, I'd like to be excused.
The gentleman has that right, and the journal will so reflect. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 1351. The ayes are 162. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House will come to order. Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 910 as amended by the House.
Chairman England has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 910 as amended by this House. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 910 by Representative Ralston, 7th Jones, the 47th, Burns, the 159th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, known as the General Appropriations Act.
Chair recognizes Chairman England to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You've got on your desks, they went out a little while ago, the Senate version of House Bill 910, or the Senate substitute, which is the green fronted piece. Then you have also a separate packet that is the House amendment. And just as we have done in the past on several amended budgets, we're handling this as an amendment by the House that is agreed upon by the Senate to wrap up our work here so we can make the final stages of our work on the FY23 budget, which will start in the morning. Also, you'll note on the House Budget and Research Office letterhead a packet that kind of explains sort of all the pieces that are in it. Some of the changes are the changes, but also many of the underlying things as the bill looked like when it first left here. So, as always, we have a special group that we need to thank, and that's the House Budget and Research Office. And Martha and Christine are sitting here on the front row, and all the others are either scattered around here in the building or back across the road. They have put in innumerable hours over the last 2 or 3 weeks on this budget and trying to get the 23 budget done as well. So if you see them, please tell them thank you. Many times they are still here until the wee hours in the day, in the evenings, trying to get things put together, get things proofed, get things checked, and last night was no exception. I also want to thank our colleagues in the Senate, and especially Chairman Tillery, for working with us to get this across the finish line, as well as the Governor and the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, Director Kelly Farr, and their work on pulling all of the pieces together. You know, working together, we had infinitely more in common than you could imagine to make this amendment possible. Collectively, the subcommittee chairs did an amazing job of addressing the pivotal needs of this amended fiscal year in the original bill, and the Senate worked with us to capitalize on those House changes and offered some additional insight and thoughtful programming dollars. Initially, the amended budget provided for a 1.4% growth in tax revenue over 2021,
But with steady gains in the first 3 quarters of FY22, the governor felt comfortable, and we agree in this amended budget to increase the revenue estimate by an additional $443 million to bring the state's 2022 spending to $30.3 billion. The primary purpose of the revenue adjustment is to provide an early payment of $374.8 million to the state's general obligating sinking fund, or our bond payments, where we pay the principal and interest on our bonds. The revenue estimate change also included an additional $3 million to the Georgia Technology Authority to implement immediate responses to growing cybersecurity concerns, as well as $45 million to increase the initial one-time $1,000 salary supplement for our nurses, school nurses, bus drivers, school cafeteria workers, and the custodial workers that we'd included in the House version of the budget, but to bring that $1,000 now up to $2,000. The other salary increases we agreed upon a few weeks ago are intact and remain the largest statement in this general budget. And in addition to those, the one-time payment for state employees, the $2,000 increase for teachers, and the cost of living adjustment for all benefit-eligible employees of the 3 branches of government beginning on April the 1st. The House amendment reflects the compromise position to take immediate action to stem turnover rates among our employees, especially within the correctional facilities at times that reach over a 90% turnover rate, with an additional $2,000 increase on top of the $5,000 COLA that everyone else is getting. The complete salary package of this amendment and the underlying bill totals $950 million. At the end of the day, that $950 million is flowing back through the economy of our state by supporting our tax-paying, hard-working state employees, teachers, and school personnel. The length and probably 95% of the items on this amendment are directly tied to the language change on the salary provision the House made for employees funded by grants, fees, fines, and other fund sources. The language was tweaked, but $76.2 million we spread across multiple agencies is still in place. Aside from the language changes, there are agreements with some great ideas that came from the other chamber. One Senate change we embrace includes a one-time $17.5 million program for rural downtown redevelopment grants. As we see investments coming down from the state level for economic development, such as Rivian, for an example, this new funding is designated to help smaller communities to make improvements to stimulate economic growth as envisioned from the local level. There's a compromise position of $3 million for equipment and operating grants for nursing programs among our higher education institutions with a wait list, and this will help accelerate and build that capacity to get more students in the classroom and more nurses then within our hospitals, nursing homes, and assisted living centers. Building on the House position in conference, we made slight adjustments to increase the facility security improvements for the GBI headquarters and to replace and improve their lab equipment for a total infusion of $5.3 million. The amendment also recognizes even more funding to shore up the Georgia Crime Victims Emergency Fund from the $6.5 million appropriated in the House version to $8.1 million, as noted in line 30.5.4 in your amendment. The Senate increased, and we agreed to double the amount of one-time funds for state parks and recreation facilities, now just about $30 million. As you know, our state parks saw a huge, massive increase in business during COVID-19, and they continue to see that influx of people enjoying our state parks. Georgians flocked to the outdoors and discovered, rediscovered, or simply kept up their attendance at our sites across the entire state. With that volume of usage comes increased need to repair, maintain, and upgrade the structures and parks themselves, from cabins to parking to restrooms, ADA ramps, welcome centers, lodges, boat docks, picnic pavilion. The list goes on. The most notable adjustment in higher education began in Regents, where there is one new capital project for the STEM building at Kennesaw State University for $4.6 million, and just over $2 million to establish a cutting-edge, integrative precision agriculture research and demonstration farm that will be co-located with the fairgrounds down at Perry. There's funding for the construction industry certification programs as well, in TCSG and in DOE, just under $4 million combined. These funds provide heavy and specialized equipment training programs in skilled trades, which help address some of our labor market shortages. The House amendment also reflects an infusion of $18.5 million in appropriation to airport aid, which draws down a 90% federal and a 10% local state match to be used statewide. All of our small local towns, our small hometowns, you all understand and they all understand what a needed piece for economic development in these communities these airports are. Finally, the amendment segregates $83 million in addition to the $23.4 million in existing DOT reserves to be used for the state matching requirement outlined in the Federal Infrastructure and Jobs Act as soon as those funds are available. As a new program in this budget, the funds send a clear signal to the federal government and the bond rating agencies that Georgia is ready to invest in our state's infrastructure. Before I close, I'd like to remind you that in the FY22 amended budget, as it was amended, there is $950 million there to fully fund the QBE teaching formula. These are the highlights of the changes since the bill left the House. You have a robust summary of those highlights that I mentioned earlier in front of you on your desk. And Mr. Speaker, at this point, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Well, you just stood up there and spent a whole lot of money with no questions.
Well, that being the case, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate everyone's attention and ask for your favorable consideration as we send House Bill 910 back over to the Senate as amended by the House. I yield the will.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 910 as amended by this House, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of, or the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 162. The nays are 2. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 910 as amended by this House. What purpose does Representative McDonald rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I make a motion that we suspend the rules of the House so that the bill can be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Chairman McDonald has moved that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Is there objection? I forgot to have the clerk read the caption. Mr. Clerk, if you would.
Unnumbered House Bill to be entitled an Act to amend Chapter 4, Title 1 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to holidays and observances, so as to revise the public and legal holidays recognized and observed by the state of Georgia.
There was no objection to the motion. The bill will be assigned to State Planning and Community Affairs. What purpose does Representative Saines rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Representative Saines has moved that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee. The clerk will read the caption.
Unnumbered House Bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2A, Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating the Department of Public Health so as to require the department to conduct surveys of children and youth in this state on identified core measures.
On the gentleman's motion, is there any objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Education. What purpose does Representative Crowe rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Representative Crowe has moved that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there a, the clerk will read the caption.
Unnumbered House Bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 42 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Board and Department of Corrections so as to provide for adoption of rules and regulations by the Board of the Department of Corrections.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there any objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Public Safety and Homeland Security. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Recognizing March 10, 2022 as Public Library Day at the State Capitol. Recognizing commending Delta Sigma Theta's Stone Mountain Lithonia Alumni Chapter on its 25th chapter anniversary. And congratulating the Atlanta Braves and inviting them to be recognized by the House of Representatives, and for other purposes that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. All right, we have some announcements. If you have signed up for an announcement, make your way to the front of the chamber. Chair recognizes Representative McLean for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want the membership to know that the Working Family Caucus will have a Zoom meeting tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And if you're here, you can go by room 307 and pick up your lunch. And it'll be an update on the key bills from the labor lobbyists tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Parsons for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. This is for members of Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications. Upon adjournment in room 506 of the LOB, there's going to be a meeting of Victor Anderson's subcommittee on third-party rooftop solar consumer protection. If y'all would meet then, and then directly after that, the same room, room 506, the LOB or CLOB, the whole committee, Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications will meet. So if all of you could kind of make your way over there upon adjournment, it'd be a good thing. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hawkins for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Budget and Fiscal Affairs will meet upon adjournment in CLOB 515. There's not a Zoom, so you must be there, 515. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gullett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Upon adjournment, Governmental Affairs Committee will meet in room 406 in the CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, everybody listen up. Tomorrow, Health and Human Services will meet at 12 noon in 506. This is different. Health and Human Services tomorrow.
Lady will suspend.
Pardon?
You know, These announcements, you might want to listen to them. Might end up wanting to go to your committee meeting. Lady may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow at 12 noon, the House Health and Human Services Committee will meet in 506 of the LOB. Tomorrow at noon in 506, Health and Human Services. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Gunter for an announcement.
There'll be a meeting of the Election Integrity Committee after the Higher Ed Committee in 606 CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Collins for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee will meet tomorrow at 1 o'clock, CLOB, room 406. We have one measure to take up. We'll be in and out very quickly. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Higher Ed Committee will meet 10 minutes after adjournment, 606 CLOB. We have 3 bills to discuss.
Chair recognizes Chairman Blackman for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ways and Means, Public Finance and Policy will meet upstairs in 403 with other subcommittees to follow immediately on adjournment. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Mitchell for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democratic Caucus will meet noon tomorrow via Zoom. Noon tomorrow via Zoom. The lunch for those who are here will be at the usual place. It was previously scheduled for 8 a.m., but because of all the meetings scheduled, it will be noon via Zoom. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dickey for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee meeting at 9:30, 406 CLOB. That's tomorrow. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman England for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a reminder, subcommittees will start meeting at 7 a.m. in the morning in room 341 here in the Capitol. We'll roll out of subcommittees into full committee at 9 a.m. to take up the FY23 budget and 2 compensation resolutions. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Newton for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Access to Quality Health Care will meet today at 4 o'clock in 406. That's upon adjournment of the Government Affairs Committee that precedes. And again, we will also meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the same room, 406 CLOB. Thank you.
That completes our announcements, but I got a very special announcement now. If you haven't already, it's not too late to go out and buy a birthday cake for our birthday honoree today. And it might behoove you to do that because today is the birthday of the chairman of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Richard Smith. Happy birthday, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 5 p.m. today and then stand adjourned until 10 a.m. March the 11th, 2022.
That will be crossover eve.
That is correct, Mr. Speaker.
So would it be wise to not have any plans back home that night? Answer is yes.
Yes. Best make sure your lights are working on the way home.
The Majority Leader has moved that this House be adjourned until Friday, March 11 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. All those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House will be adjourned until Friday, March 11 at 10 a.m.